When Tina Satchwell's family first reported her missing in the spring of 2017, the working theory was that she had simply walked away from her marriage. Her husband Richard told investigators she had packed 2 suitcases, taken 26,000 euros in cash from a box hidden in the attic, set her house keys on the floor, left her phone on the table, and abandoned her dogs alone in the house. No goodbye, no forwarding address, just gone. For 6.5 years, that story held together, just barely. Gardaí searched, family pleaded, tips came in from across Ireland, from England, from Europe. Every single one led nowhere. What no one knew, what no one could have imagined, was that Tina Satchwell had never left that house at all.
She just wasn't there. I found her keys on the ground as I went through the front door. So I just said she's gone out for a walk, and when she didn't come back.
Tina Dingavan was born on November 30th, 1972, in Fermoy, a market town along the Blackwater River in County Cork. She was described by people who knew her as warm, outgoing, and deeply rooted in the people around her. Her family was her world, and Fermoy was the place that world existed. She met Richard Satchwell sometime in the late 1980s or early 1990s. He was English, older, and the relationship developed slowly into a decades-long partnership. They were together for nearly 3 decades, a span of life that would come to define everything about what happened next. By 2016, something had shifted. Richard made the decision to relocate Tina from Fermoy, from the community and support system she had built over a lifetime, to Youghal, a coastal town roughly 30 kilometers east. It sounds like a minor geographic change, but investigators would later describe it as a deliberate act of isolation. Tina had no network in Youghal, no close friends within walking distance, no family nearby, no one to notice if things went wrong inside that house on Grattan Street. Richard later admitted, under oath during his own trial, that he had isolated her, that he had understood exactly what moving her there would do to her social life. Whether he framed it as protection, practicality, or love, the effect was the same. Tina Satchwell, by early 2017, was alone in a way she had never been before. And she had started to say so out loud. She told Richard she had wasted 28 years of her life. She wanted to leave. Whether those conversations happened once or many times, they happened. And Richard Satchwell heard every word. On the night of March 19, 2017, something happened inside the Grattan Street house that Richard Satchwell would later be unable to fully explain. According to testimony presented at trial, Tina was heard crying in Richard's arms that night. Whatever was said between them, it was not a quiet evening. The weight of everything she had been carrying, the isolation, the regret, the desire for a different life, was present in that house. The following morning, according to Richard's version of events, he left to run an errand at Aldi. He was gone for a few hours. When he returned, sometime between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon on March 20, 2017, Tina was gone. The cash was missing. The suitcases were gone. Her phone and keys were left behind. He did not call the police that day. He did not call the next day or the day after. 4 days passed before Richard Satchwell contacted Gardaí or Tina's family. When prosecutors later examined this gap, they called it what it looked like. Time. Time to think. Time to build a story. Time to prepare for the questions that were coming. But there was something even more disturbing buried inside those 4 days. Something Richard did while supposedly searching for his missing wife.
At Middleton Garda Station are investigating the disappearance of Tina Satchwell from Youghal in County Cork, who was last seen in March of 2017.
He drove to Fermoy. He went to the home of Tina's aunt and uncle. He sat with them and asked whether they had heard from her. He did this, prosecutors argued, while Tina's body was already in a chest freezer inside the garden shed of their Yukon home. Richard Satchwell did not confess when Tina was first reported missing. He did not confess when Gardaí started asking uncomfortable questions in 2022. He only told his version of events after investigators returned to the Grattan Street house in October 2023, after the body had already been found. His account went like this. On the morning of March 20, he and Tina had an argument. She came at him with a chisel. A physical confrontation followed. In the chaos of defending himself, he accidentally strangled her with the belt of her own dressing gown. He said it was not intentional. He said it happened in a blur. He said he panicked. The prosecution, led by Geraldine Small, had a different word for it. She called his account farcical, implausible, self-serving. She told the jury it had more holes than Swiss cheese. Here is what stood out most to investigators. Richard Satchwell, when asked to describe the moments surrounding Tina's death, became vague. He said it was a blur. He said he couldn't remember precisely how it unfolded. But when asked about what he did afterward, how he wrapped her body, how he stored it, how he eventually buried her, his memory sharpened considerably. He remembered placing her in a chest freezer in the garden shed. He said the dogs had been interacting with her body and he needed to move her somewhere contained. He remembered the lining space under the stairs with black plastic sheeting. He remembered pouring concrete. He remembered that he had wanted to place roses on top of her, but couldn't find any, so he used tulips instead, because he considered them a beautiful alternative. He said he buried her with respect, that he treated her gently. State pathologist Dr. Margot Bolster and forensic anthropologist Dr. Laureen Buckley documented what was actually found when the space was opened. Tina Satchwell, face down, arms crossed, legs folded back beneath her, wrapped in black plastic, buried under approximately 1 meter of concrete. Her wallet, containing her public service card, was still in the pocket of her dressing gown. Between March 2017 and October 2023, Richard Satchwell continued to live his life. He spoke to journalists. He appealed publicly for information about his missing wife. He constructed a narrative that painted Tina as mentally unwell, depressed, volatile, capable of sudden violence. He offered her freezer to her cousin Sarah, apparently unaware of what it had previously been used for. That detail, the freezer, became one of the most chilling elements of the entire case. Richard Satchwell offered Tina's cousin a domestic appliance that, by his own eventual admission, had stored Tina's body. Whether this was an act of calculated cruelty, reckless indifference, or something even more disturbing, prosecutors pointed to it as evidence of a man who had fully compartmentalized what he had done. He also told police that a local builder had constructed the brick wall under the stairs during the period following Tina's disappearance. When investigators tracked down that builder, the man denied any involvement. No record of the work existed. No one had been hired. Richard Satchwell had built it himself, sealing his wife inside her tomb with his own hands. Gardaí grew increasingly suspicious by February 2022. The inconsistencies in his account had compounded over 5 years. The missing money that no bank or ATM could account for, the phone and keys left behind, the complete absence of Tina from any record, no withdrawals, no travel, no communication of any kind with anyone she had ever known. In October 2023, investigators returned to the Grattan Street property with a different focus. They noted the wall beneath the stairs, newer than the rest of the house, poorly finished, inconsistent with the surrounding construction. When they opened it, the concrete beneath was uneven, makeshift, rushed in ways a professional would not leave. Tina Satchwell had been there the entire time.
I think people are happy that they found her and she can be laid to rest. And we're happy about that.
Richard Satchwell pleaded not guilty to the murder of his wife when the case came before the Central Criminal Court in Dublin in 2025. The trial ran for nearly 5 weeks, a painstaking reconstruction of a marriage, a death, and a cover-up that had stretched across 6.5 years. The defense leaned hard on the accidental death theory, the chisel attack, the unplanned struggle, the panic of a man who had done something terrible by accident and made catastrophically poor decisions in the aftermath. They argued there was no premeditation, and under Irish law, premeditation is the dividing line between murder and manslaughter. The prosecution dismantled that argument piece by piece. Gerardine Small pointed to the pattern of isolation, the deliberate relocation to Youghal, the severing of Tina's ties to her community, the slow and methodical removal of the people who might have noticed her disappearing. She pointed to the 4-day delay in reporting. She pointed to the false claim about the builder. She pointed to the fabricated narrative about 26,000 euros that materialized from nowhere and was never traced anywhere. She also pointed to something more personal. Richard Satchwell had buried his dog Heidi with what witnesses described as genuine care and ceremony. But Tina, his wife of nearly 30 years, he left face down in the dark, folded into a space barely large enough to contain her, sealed under concrete and plastic and silence. The jury deliberated for just under 10 hours. On May 30, 2025, they returned a verdict of guilty. On June 4, 2025, Richard Satchwell was sentenced to life in prison. For Tina's family, the Dingavan family of Fermoy, the verdict closed a chapter but could not undo what the preceding years had done to them. They had spent 6.5 years not knowing. They had fielded Richard's visits, answered his questions, engaged with his public appeals, believed at some level that Tina might still be somewhere out there. Every piece of that time was now reframed in a terrible new light. The isolation had been visible. The move to Youghal had happened in front of them. Tina's unhappiness had been detectable, in retrospect, in the things she said in her final months. Her family grappled openly in media coverage following the verdict with the question of whether they had missed something, whether there had been a moment where saying something differently might have changed what happened on the morning of March 20, 2017. Investigators and advocates who followed the case pointed to it as a clear example of coercive control, a pattern of behavior that isolates a victim before any physical harm occurs, that reshapes their world until the people who might protect them are simply out of reach. Ireland introduced specific legislation targeting coercive control in 2018, 1 year after Tina's death. Her case became, in the years that followed, a reference point for understanding how that pattern operates in practice. The house on Grattan Street is a 2-story terraced home on an ordinary residential street in a town most people would describe as quiet. Tina had lived there for approximately 1 year before she was killed. The neighbors who passed it every day had no reason to suspect anything. The wall under the stairs was just a wall. The flowers planted nearby were just flowers. That is, in many ways, the most unsettling part of this story. Not the violence itself, though that is devastating, but the years of normalcy that surrounded it. Richard Satchwell went to the grocery store. He spoke to journalists. He drove to Fermoy to ask about his missing wife while she lay in a freezer 40 minutes away. He built a wall and let people admire his home improvements. He lived inside that house for years after burying her in it. What eventually broke the case was not a confession, not a witness coming forward, not a tip from abroad. It was investigators looking at a wall and recognizing that the brickwork was wrong, that something about the construction didn't match the age of the house, that the concrete beneath it had been poured by someone in a hurry, or under pressure, or trying to finish something they needed no one to ever look at closely again. Tina Satchwell's public service card was still in her pocket. After 6.5 years in the ground, her identity was confirmed by something as simple as a piece of plastic that proved she had once existed, had once had a name, had once been a person the state had registered and recognized. She was 44 years old when she died. She had grown up in Fermoy with people who loved her. She had a life that extended far beyond the marriage that ended it. And for 6.5 years, the man responsible for her death sat across from television cameras, attended memorials, and watched her family grieve without answers. On June 4, 2025, a judge handed down a mandatory life sentence, the only sentence available under Irish law for a murder conviction. Richard Satchwell showed no visible reaction. Outside the court, Tina's family spoke. They had waited 6.5 years for this moment. They said they hoped she was finally at peace. They said they would never stop missing her. They said they had spent years wondering where she was, not knowing that she had never been more than an hour's drive from the people who loved her most.